The difficult part is that these snakes are some of the best at hide and seek, since they love to hide in dense vegetation, underground, in the water, and even in the trees. And in a surprise turn of events, when you least expect it, these snakes could find and tag you, since it's not uncommon for the snakes to work their way through plumbing systems and into toilets. Even though Florida memes are funny, we have to give credit where credit is due. Florida can hang their alligator skin hat knowing that they are currently in first place for having the most amount of invasive animals on the planet. Number 3, wild pigs. This is the only animal on the list that I've encountered firsthand, and trust me, they are as mean and disgusting as they look. I've had wild pigs threaten to charge at me up close, but once it got a good look at my insane physique, it of course cowered it out by not chasing me. Wild pigs are native to Eurasia and parts of North Africa, but were brought over to the US, Australia, and Europe as a food source. But you will never guess what happened next. They escaped, and in the wild, their numbers quickly exploded. One interesting thing to note is that it took humans thousands of years to domesticate wild pigs into the smooth and gentle pink giants we see on farms today. But if that same pig managed to escape into the wild, in a matter of months, it would revert back to its original form and look like this. Which makes me sick just looking at it. A wild pig can grow as large as 150 pounds, and before you say, what about Hogzilla? He was much larger. But that was nothing more than a cheap and disgusting perspective trick that hunters like to abuse, making the animal look much larger. Of course, I only do this when holding a fish. After all, how else would I convince my friends that I know what I'm doing? Now let's talk about why these animals are so destructive. For one, pigs are omnivores and opportunistic feeders, so they will eat pretty much anything, leaving nothing behind for native animals. One of the most destructive habits of wild pigs is rooting, where they dig into the ground to consume the plant's roots, which destroys the soil and kills native plants, preventing them from growing again. Another terrible habit that pigs have is wallowing, where they roll around in the mud next to a water source, contaminating the water with bacteria, diseases, and parasites, which affects the native wildlife that drink the water. Now here in America, farmers and landowners are sick of these pigs and are fighting back the only way we know how, which is by shooting them with high-caliber machine guns from helicopters. After all, there is no other way. Now, I know what you're thinking. Lucky them. But don't worry, you can always pay to experience this for yourself. Number 2, the brown tree snake. The brown tree snake is a mildly venomous snake native to Australia, Indonesia, and Papua New Guinea. But during the 1940s, the US military accidentally brought the snake to Guam, most likely in shipping containers or in cargo. Today, there are around 2 million of these snakes on the island, or around 3,000 snakes per square mile, making it almost impossible not to run into them. Here on the island, picking up common items like tree branches, logs, and cords are all a frightening game of roulette. The brown tree snake is the only species of snake on the entire island, which hasn't allowed enough time for the native animals to adapt accordingly, leading to 7 out of 18 native bird species to become extinct, permanently changing Guam's ecosystem. But not only are these snakes eating all the native animals on the island, they are also constantly causing power outages, since they love to climb on transformers and electrical lines, causing them to short circuit. Today, US authorities are fighting back by using helicopters to drop thousands of dead mice onto the trees for the snakes to eat. The free meal comes with a deadly amount of painkillers, which are glued onto the mice, causing the snakes to die soon after eating them. But only time will tell if this proves to be an effective way of controlling the snake population before all the native birds and animals are completely wiped out. Number 1, feral cats. Who would have thought that these cute and cuddly animals would be capable of so much death and destruction? Well, anyone who lives with one could have told you that. Yes, the deadliest and most destructive invasive animal in the world was right next to us the entire time. And in all honesty, we should have seen this one coming, since all the signs were there. To see just how much of an impact cats can have on an ecosystem, or in this case, an entire continent, we just have to take a look at Australia. In the 18th century, cats arrived in Australia on ships to help manage the rat and mouse populations. But over time, cats got sick of being around humans, and figured that starting a new life in the Australian outback was a way better option. And in no time, the feral cat population exploded. Today, there are anywhere from 2 to 10 million cats in the wild, and are directly linked to the extinction of many native species, and the endangerment of hundreds more. And since cats have no natural predators and many options for food, that number is only growing. It's estimated that 1 million native birds and reptiles are killed every single day by feral cats, and well over 1 billion animals every single year, making them the deadliest invasive animal on the planet. So in an attempt to lower the feral cat population, authorities are deploying poison baits in areas with high concentration of cats. And in certain areas, hunters are paid to trap and kill the animal, being paid $10 per cat scalp. Now another tactic that is being implemented is simply giving up, creating a 27-mile cat-free zone by enclosing it with an electric fence to protect native animals, essentially providing them with a little safe haven inside of a maximum security prison. Let's start with the scary and slowly work our way towards the most terrifying ones on the list. Number 10, space junk. As it turns out, our planet is not the only thing we treat like a giant trash can, since space is slowly becoming a giant landfill as well. There are currently millions of pieces of man-made junk in Earth's orbit, with over 30,000 of them being over 10 centimeters long, or around 4 inches. Now, the reason why this is so scary is that the number of junk is only growing. But this really shouldn't worry you, since I'm sure we'll eventually get around to cleaning it, which usually only happens when it becomes a big enough problem that our government is forced to do something about it. You see, the growing amounts of space junk are becoming a major problem for space exploration and travel, and NASA has already had to course correct 32 times since 1999 to avoid satellites and space debris. Now, you're probably thinking, this is an issue that you will never have to worry about, since you never leave the house, let alone plan on traveling to space. But as it turns out, the space debris might just come to you. There have been many reports of large pieces of metal, spaceships, and satellites landing on people's property and homes. But I'm sure the majority of the pieces go unreported since they most likely land in the ocean, where they blend in with the rest of the trash. Number 9. Cosmic voids. As we leave Earth's orbit and begin to look further out into the universe, we quickly begin to discover all sorts of terrifying things. But before we get to those, I want to focus on nothing. I literally mean nothing. You see, there are vast spaces in the universe that don't contain anything at all. No planets, no stars, no moons, no McDonald's, no asteroids, nothing. These empty spaces are known as cosmic voids, and in some cases they can be hundreds of millions of light years in diameter. This would create a long and lonely space trip for anything that decides to journey across them. Unless, of course, you were blessed with being an introvert, since we are completely immune to this weakness. Now, I know these large numbers are very hard to grasp, so let me just show you what this all looks like. Here's an illustration of the Virgo supercluster, which contains around 100,000 galaxies, including our home, the Milky Way. Now, let's zoom out and take a look at the areas here. These are cosmic voids. This particular one here is called Boötes Void, and is one of the largest voids in the known universe, spanning around 330 million light years wide. For perspective, the entire Milky Way galaxy, which is home to at least 100 billion planets, is 100,000 light years wide. Number 8. Dead galaxies. Dead galaxies are galaxies that have run out of cold hydrogen gas, which is necessary to fuel stars and create new ones. These dead galaxies will be the first to become completely dark and lifeless, leaving behind a cold and lonely cemetery. But for now, these galaxies appear red as they burn through their last remaining energy that they will ever have. Now let's get to the terrifying part. All galaxies, including our own, will eventually run out of energy, and it's hypothesized that the entire universe eventually will as well. A stage that is referred to as the Dark Era, and it's speculated to be the final state of the universe, leaving behind a cold and dark universe where light and energy cease to exist. Number 7. Planets. NASA estimates that there are at least 100 billion planets in the Milky Way galaxy alone, and over 6 sextillion planets in the observable universe. That's 21 zeros, by the way. Not that it even matters, since none of us could even come close to comprehending that. So instead, people try to visualize this by saying that there are more planets in the known universe than grains of sand on Earth. And for those of you that have never been to the beach, take it from someone who has. We still can't comprehend this number either. Now, we don't have to look far to find some truly terrifying planets, since we have a few of them here in our own solar system, but let's just take a look at the scariest one, Jupiter. This planet is an absolute nightmare, and is scary enough to just look at. Jupiter's a giant gas planet that is 1,300 times larger than Earth, and is covered in violent storms, as I'm sure you already know. But really quickly, here are just a few of the ways Jupiter would absolutely mop the floor with you. Radiation exposure, dead. Atmospheric pressure, dead. 400 plus mile/hour winds, dead. Struck by lightning, dead. You overheat, dead. You freeze, dead. You decide to breathe, dead. But if Jupiter's not scary enough, our galaxy has many other horrific planets to choose from, like planets that constantly rain molten iron or molten glass, planets that are entirely covered in ice, planets that are entirely covered in lava, planets that are entirely covered in water, planets that are just completely dark, planets with giant hurricanes the size of Earth. Nope, that's just Jupiter again. I told you that place sucks. Number 6. Aliens. Ever since we were young, Hollywood has conditioned us to be scared of aliens, so it's no surprise that this one would end up on the list. Movies like Alien, Signs, Predator, Cloverfield, The Thing, and of course The GOAT, Killer Clowns from Outer Space, all made aliens incredibly violent and terrifying. And when Hollywood finally attempted to create a friendly and relatable alien, all they got right was his body type. And it definitely worked. Scientists say that it's only a matter of time until we find the existence of aliens. But here's the thing, right? An alien or an extraterrestrial being is simply just something that is living that didn't originate on Earth. So this could be something as small as bacteria, but if we're lucky, it could be a fish or mammal-like creature. But of course, this could be something infinitely more terrifying. And that's what makes this one so scary. We really don't know what's out there. Now, thankfully, we all know that first impressions are everything. So I'm hopeful that aliens will just take a quick look at Earth's orbit and decide not to visit, since we're obviously very dirty. Number 5. Gamma ray bursts. Gamma ray bursts are the most powerful explosions in the known universe, releasing more energy in a second than the sun would in a billion years. This can occur a few different ways, either when a star goes supernova, when two neutron stars collide and form a black hole, or when a black hole swallows a